Before we get into cells, we must first talk about what organelles are. Organelles are different structures located in the cell working together. Think of it this way. Just like the human body is made of a bunch of different organs working together, there are a bunch of different structures inside the cell working together to make a healthy cell. There are many organelles you can find in a cell. But for the sake of this video, we're just going to focus on the ones that we feel you're most likely to hear or come across. These include the nucleus, cell membrane, ribosomes, endoplasmic reticulum, lysosomes, Golgi apparatus, mitochondria, and cytoplasm. There are two more organelles I'd like to talk about, but I'll wait until the end of the video to talk about those. The first organelle I would like to talk about is the nucleus. The nucleus is that big round ball you find in some cells. It's called the control center and the brain because it stores genetic material. Genetic material is DNA. So, in other words, the nucleus is where you would find DNA. It's worth noting that sometimes you'll come across something and it'll say nuclear envelope or nuclear membrane or nucleolus. It won't say nucleus. If a cell has a nuclear envelope or membrane or a nucleolus, it's safe to assume that it also has a nucleus because these are structures that you only find around or in the nucleus. Next, we have the mitochondria. The mitochondria is often referred to as the powerhouse of the cell. That's because it's the site for ATP production. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate, and it's simply a fancy word for energy. The mitochondria is where the cell gets its energy. Next is the cell membrane. The cell membrane is the outermost layer of the cell. It's called the gatekeeper because it can control what goes in and out of the cell. Think of it this way. Imagine you were looking at a fish tank. Inside that fish tank, you have water, you have fish, you have decorations. Now, the fish tank itself is what keeps all that stuff from escaping. At the same time, that fish tank probably has a door or opening at the top that you can use to add fish food and other things to that tank. Well, the cell membrane is like that fish tank. It controls what goes in and out of the cell. Next, we have ribosomes. Ribosomes are known as the protein factory because they're the site for protein synthesis. I want you to take a look at that ribosome on the top left. If you notice at the top, you see amino acid is being made. Whenever you hear that term amino acid, I want you to think of protein. It's why a lot of the supplements you see on the market brag about having amino acids. They're saying we have protein. Now, there are two parts of the endoplasmic reticulum. You have a section of it that has ribosomes attached to it that's known as the rough endoplasmic reticulum. You have the other side of it that has no ribosomes attached to it, and it's known as the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Now, the rough endoplasmic reticulum, it stores primarily protein, hence why it has all those ribosomes on them, because those ribosomes make protein, and then that protein is stored in the rough endoplasmic reticulum. In the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, you'll also find some protein, but you'll also find lipids being stored too. This brings us to the Golgi Body or Golgi apparatus. It's important you familiarize yourself with both terms because it's often referred to as either or. The Golgi Body is like the post office or the mailman. because it's going to process, sort, and deliver those proteins and lipids we stored in the endoplasmic reticulum. Next, we have lysosomes. They're known as the cleanup crew or garbage man. What makes lysosomes so special is that they contain enzymes that can be used to break down damaged or worn out parts inside the cell. Lastly, we have the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm isn't an organelle, but it's just as important. The cytoplasm is a gel-like substance that fills the inside of a cell, and it holds the organelles inside of it. If you remember earlier, I said there were two organelles I wanted to talk about more towards the end of the video. One of which is chloroplast. Chloroplast is an organelle you'll only find in plants and some protists. What makes chloroplast so special is that it's the site for photosynthesis. Another video will talk more about photosynthesis and what it is exactly, but for now just know that chloroplasts are responsible for making food for plants and some protists. The last organelle I wanted to talk about was the cell wall. The cell wall is like the chloroplast because it's also found in plants and some protists. What makes the cell wall unique is that it's the outermost layer of the cell. If you notice in the picture there, instead of the outermost layer being the cell membrane, it's surrounded by the cell wall. The cell wall is a rigid layer that protects and supports the cell. It can also influence the shape of a cell. So, in conclusion, some of the organelles you should know include the nucleus, which stores genetic information or DNA, the mitochondria, which creates ATP or energy, the cell membrane, which controls what goes in and out of the cell, ribosomes, which make protein, the endoplasmic reticulum, which is used to store proteins and lipids, the Golgi body or apparatus, which then processes and transports these proteins and lipids, lysosomes, which are responsible for breaking down damaged and worn cells, chloroplasts, which are only found in plants and are the site for photosynthesis, the cell wall, which is only found in plants and is this rigid structure that provides support and protection, and lastly, cytoplasm, which is this gel-like substance inside the cell that all the organelles float in. Thank you for your time. I hope you found the video helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe so we can continue bringing you more content.